Good morning and welcome. Please, I'd be grateful if you could take your seats as quickly as possible. There's some sign-in sheets up at the front, up at the back. If you could sign the sheets and make your way into your seats. Okay. Welcome everyone to our annual PGR Supervisor Update session. My name's Martina Daly and I'm the Faculty Postgraduate Research Lead. And I'd like to welcome you here again today, and I hope you all had a really good summer and that you've had a nice cup of tea and that you're ready to hear about all the things that have been happening in the area of postgraduate research over the last year or so. We've got a very busy session planned for you today, and we're recording the session, so I'd be grateful if you could refrain from interrupting the speakers if possible. We've tried to build in as much time as possible for questions, and there's a little bit of time left for questions at the very end. So if you have any burning questions, we'll try to answer them after the speaker is finished. And without any further ado, I'd like to start by welcoming Professor Lorraine Maltby to give the opening presentation, which is about working to develop doctoral provision at the University of Sheffield. Lorraine is the Deputy Vice President for Research and Innovation, whose special remit is for postgraduate research. And she's been a year in the job, and it's been a very busy year, and she's told us that next year is going to be even busier. So she's very kindly agreed to come along and tell us about what she's been doing and what's ahead of us in the next year. Over to you, Lorraine.
Thank you very much, Martina. So, as Martina said, I've been in the post for 1 year now. So my home department is actually Animal and Plant Sciences, where I'm Professor of Environmental Biology. Martina asked me to do a couple of things in this presentation, to give you a kind of an overview of what we've done in the past year and give you a heads up on what's coming in the next year. So Martina said we've been quite busy, so there's quite a lot to do. Rather than spend a lot of time going into the detail, I put detail in the slides, not for you to read now, but when you get the slides later you can read the detail in your own time. But that means you've got the information in front of you. So let's start with an update of what we've done in the last year. So we really want to cover 4 areas. One is we did a detailed review of the Doctoral Academy, and I'll let you know what the outcome of that was. We've had a review of how we allocate our scholarship money and how we should allocate it in the future. I'll let you know the outcome of that. We've had considerable discussions around thesis submission and funded period and what the new guidance from the Research Councils means for us, and I'll take you through that. And we started a piece of work around PGR, mental health, well-being and resilience. So Doctoral Academy. So when I was appointed just over a year ago, I was given 2 roles. One was to be Deputy Vice President of Research and Innovation, and the other one was to be the Director of the Doctoral Academy. And I was given that role, and then I was told to review the Doctoral Academy and see if we still need it. So I was given a job and then told to review whether I still needed that job, which was an interesting position to be in, but there we are. So the Doctoral Academy was formed in 2013 after a review in 2012, but it became clear, and it was crystallised in the review of research support in 16-17, that there was really confusion about what the Doctoral Academy was for. There was a lack of understanding both in the staff and the students on the role of the purpose and the remit of the Doctoral Academy. So it's important to try and review that. So we carried out a detailed review, talked to lots of different stakeholders, and the bottom line was that there was a recognised need for a formal central committee and senior leadership that raised the profile and visibility of PGR students. There has been a tendency in this institution, probably in others, that PGR students get a little bit overlooked. When you think about students, the focus tends to be on undergraduates and on PGT. And then we've got these PGRs. So there was a need to raise that visibility, and a central committee and senior leadership for that was thought to be important. And there was also a need for a body that had a strategic oversight of PGR matters, thinking about what the vision is for PGR in our institution, governance, training, etc. But what was also clear was that most stakeholders, staff and students, professional services and academics, didn't see a prominent role for the Doctoral Academy in student-facing activities. And I think that's where part of the confusion had been in the past. Students didn't know what the Academy did, what the graduate schools did, what the departments did, what the supervisors did, etc. So in March last year, the Senate actually dissolved the Doctoral Academy and approved a new hub and spoke model, where the role of the hub is to provide leadership and development of PGR strategy and policy. So it's very much the strategy and policy body, whereas the spokes are the organisations, the bodies that provide leadership for implementation of that PGR strategy and policy. The hub is this central committee, which is now the University PGR Committee, and the spokes are the graduate schools. So there's now a clear, I hope, a much clearer demarcation of roles and responsibilities. The central committee develops the policy and the strategy, but then implementation with student-facing activities run down through the graduate schools, and it's up to the graduate schools to decide how they want to roll them out to departments. And the specific responsibilities for the hub and the spokes are there, and this is the bit of detail that I put on the slide for you to look at in your own time, but we're not going to go into the detail just here. So that's one thing, to try and get clarity around the structures and PGR governance. The other piece of work was about scholarships. Now, PGRs, as I say, tend to be, in the past, have tended to be overlooked, but they're essential for a research-intensive university such as ours. It's essential that we have a vibrant PGR community. And it's important that we invest in that community. But that investment has to be strategic. The top panel shows you the relative investment in PGR, so this is stipends and fees, etc., in two time periods, in 11-12 and in 16-17. In 16-17, we spent over 30 million of money on our PGRs. Over 50% of that was our own money. And you see that's where the difference is. The blue bars is external funding, the green bars are university resources. That balance has changed. We're actually spending more of our own resources on PGR than we're bringing in. And even though we've increased the spend on PGR, our recruitment of PGR has not followed that increased spend. So that's the bottom panel. Just look at the top line, the solid line, which is total PGRs. You see it's increasing up to about 12, 13, 13, 14 level, and then it's going down. So we're investing more resource, but we're not getting the recruitment from that. So we need to think about how we invest in that resource in the most effective way. We should look at that anyhow, but it's even more important we look at it now because we know the budget's going down. And this is in line with budgets going down across the university. So we will have less money to allocate to PGR studentships and stipends in the coming year. So we need to think about how best to allocate that money. So we thought about what the criteria are for future investment in scholarships. And these are the criteria. Again, not going into detail, but just flag the main items. It's all about leverage. It's about providing match funding for prestigious schemes that we want to be involved in, we should be involved in, such as those run by research councils. To attract talented students that actually have some more money, their own, and we can add to that. So we can leverage funding to attract talented international students. We can use our money to leverage external funding and to leverage funding from self-funded students. PGR loans are coming in this September. We have case-type studentships where we can bring in industrial funding. We should use this investment to build capacity and to support strategic areas of research. And we should use this money to develop partnerships and collaborations that again provide a platform for building research collaborations that can attract other sorts of funding, such as GCRF and Industrial Strategy Research Fund. So we're thinking about how we use our money strategically. It links into the research strategy of the institution and the research strategies of the faculties. These are the principles that were approved by Senate in June. They will be applied for university level funding and will be expected to apply for any one of the central funding that gets allocated down to faculties. So it's all about making sure that the investment we make delivers what we need to deliver and delivers that vibrant PGR community. Many of you are probably aware that the research councils, actually even before UKRI came into force, but certainly been reinforced since UKRI came into force, have started to harmonise their procedures. And one of the statements that has been made, it was actually made over a year ago, but has been reinforced in the Research Council Training Guidance published in May, is that councils expect doctoral projects to be designed and supervised in a way that enables us students to submit their thesis within the funded period. Not the funded period plus 12 months, within the funded period. And that funded period should be made clear to the student at the outset, and that, of course, they recognise that there may be circumstances in which that's not possible, and an extension is required, but they see that those extensions being very specific cases, for example, parental leave. This is quite a big shift in culture. The graph shows you two sets of bars, one in black and one in grey. The bars in black are PGR students that submit within the funded period. Across our institution, it's 15%. Only 15% of our PGR students submit within their funded period. Varies slightly by faculty, but no faculties are doing particularly well. Medicine, dentistry and health are below the average. If we look at 4-year submission, then only 72% submit in 4 years. Again, it varies slightly by faculty. So this is an area that we need to focus on, we need to try and address, and there are many reasons for this. It's not a simple solution, but we do need to work towards fixing these problems so that students have got a realistic expectation of submission within the funded period. And again, a set of principles were agreed in Senate in June. Details are here. But it's basically that students should be funded for the amount of time to conduct their research and submit their thesis. That should be clear to the students at the outset. The projects should be designed and supervised to enable that to happen. And that conducting research and writing up should be integrated concurrent activities. So it's not 3 years funding for research, 1 year funding for writing up. And the group that developed these principles, which were the PGR leads across the 5 faculties, concluded that about 3.5 years is a realistic time frame for the preparation and submission of a PhD thesis. If we expect our students to do more, we may need to give them more time and fund them for that. I'll come back to that later. So this is quite an important area and will continue going forward. So what are we going to do in 18-19? Well, we've divided the work up into 5 work streams, each led by a faculty PGR lead, And for each work stream, we would encourage people to engage with it. We don't want these work streams to go off into dark corners, think deep thoughts, and then come out and say, well, here we are, come and do this. Because a lot of the changes we need to make are cultural changes, and we all need to buy into those, and they need to be changes that suit the variations across the disciplines. So please do engage with these. So the first work stream, which is headed by John Provis, who's the PGR lead in engineering, is actually implementing that hub and spoke model. And part of that implementation will be an increased harmonisation of processes. We currently have a situation where a PGR student may be part of a doctoral training centre that's across different faculties and sat next to their mate who's in the same training centre but across slightly different combinations of departments, and they may be expected to do quite different things for confirmation, etc., etc. How do we justify that when they're actually on the same programme but doing different things? Discipline-specific variation in some cases is important and is necessary, but in other cases it's not. And part of this process will be trying to get consistency of key processes rather than just having variation because, well, we've always done it that way. And also making sure that those roles and responsibilities are embedded and understood so people know who's responsible for what. So hopefully that lack of clarity that we had with the Doctoral Academy will not continue. The second work stream is about expectations, and this is headed by Andy Furley, who's a PGR lead for science. And when we first started thinking about this, we were really thinking about the training review. We were thinking back to that submission within the funded period. Why don't the students submit within the funded period? Why are they taking longer and longer? Well, one of the reasons for that is we're asking more and more of them. Piling training upon training upon training, on placements, this, that and the other. But poor people have no time left. So this starts off with a training review. What do we really need to provide to our students, and how's the best way to provide that? What do they need to have, and what would be nice to have, and how do we decide? And we took this to UEB, and alongside those data I showed you about submission within the funded period, and when UEB came back to us and said, actually, we need to be more fundamental in this review. It's not just think about what training we provide, but actually we need to go away and think about what is a PhD? What are we expecting our students to do? What are our expectations? Is it to produce a paper in Nature? Well, actually, no, that's not what PhD is. But what is it? What's realistic to expect of our students? And is that expectation something that we can support? Support financially, that's the funded period. Support them in terms of giving them the skills and infrastructure, etc. they need to do that. So this work stream will go very fundamental back to this. What is a PhD? What do we expect of our students? Then we can think about the training needs and how we deliver that. And we can also think about support. Support for the students, but also support for the supervisors. We tend to forget the supervisors. We tend to focus on the students all the time. The supervisors, we all need support. And actually, we need training as well. I've been supervising PhD students for probably more years than I wish to admit to. And I've got into bad habits. And there are changes that I should be getting up to speed on. So we'll also be looking at supervisor support and training. Workstream 3 is on recruitment. I mentioned a few slides ago that total PGR recruitment's gone down. There is another figure that shows our PGR recruitment against other universities. Ours with the red bar that's pointing downwards. This is changing PGR intake in 16-17 versus 13-14. We're not alone in having a reduction in our PGR community. but there are other institutions that are increasing, and others that are not decreasing quite as much as us. But this raises the question of, I said we needed a vibrant PGR community because we're a research institute-led institution. But what is a vibrant PGR community? For medicine, dentistry and health, what does that mean to you? What size of PGR community do you need to maintain that vibrant research environment? Is it that every academic has one student? Is it that you have teams of 4, 5, 6 PGR students? Do you think PGR students are not necessary for your research? So that's a question we're going to throw out to people this year. What size PGR community do you need? What's the minimum you need to keep that vibrant research environment? And then, what's your capacity? How many could you take? What's limiting that? So what are the bounds within which you want to operate? And once we know that, then how do we deliver it? How do we get those students that we need to keep our engine of research going? To keep our disciplines going. If we don't train PGR students, who's going to sit in our places in a few years' time? So that's what that work stream will be doing. That's headed by Kate Reid, who's the research lead in social science. The fourth work stream is around PGR wellbeing, mental health and resilience, and Martina's leading this. We know there's been increasing concern about student mental health and wellbeing. It's been in the national press, it's a national issue. Locally, in the University of Sheffield, it's come to the attention of Council and the Vice-Chancellor, and that resulted in the mental health strategy being produced last year, which has set up the student access to mental health and mental health first aid training for staff, which I would encourage you to go on if you haven't done. But most of that is focused again on undergraduates because they're the majority of our students. But PGR students have specific needs. Undergraduate students are in cohorts. Many PGR students are isolated. We put a lot of pressure on our PGR students, as there are a lot of pressure on us. Those expectations are high. These are high-performing individuals put in high-pressure environments, often left on their own. Various studies have reported about 30 to 40% of PGR students present with mental health issues. Are we supporting our students adequately? And that's what this work stream will be looking at. And the final one is about quality and standards. So the Office for Students, which you'll all be aware of, focuses on quality standards, and now universities are regulated. And the University Council has to give assurance to the Office of Students every year that we're maintaining our quality standards. How do we know we're doing that? Are we doing it? Interesting questions. The Senate has just set up a new body to oversee this, which is the University Academic Assurance Committee, I think is its acronym. And we need to look at this at PGR. We need to think about QA for our PGRs. What do we do? What approach do we adopt currently? Is it fit for purpose? We need to conduct a review of our regulations, our process for programme approval, which is a little ad hoc, one could say, and collaborative provision. We have lots of these little relationships with other institutions. Are they the right thing for us to be doing? Are we really supporting the students that are on those collaborative programmes, etc.? So that's what that work stream will do. So those are the 5 work streams. You see, we've done a lot in 1 year. We've got a lot to do. And I would just like to end by encouraging you to get involved. If there are any of those work streams that you're particularly interested in engaging with, please see Martina, and Martina will put you in contact with the lead, the academic lead for those work streams. This is important for all of us, and we'd really like your input and your views and your contributions. Thank you very much.
time for one question. Paul.
Thank you very much.
So Paul, you'll speak up because I'm slightly deaf.
Yeah,
so.
I am as well. Thank you very much for it. I was very encouraged to see we're going to be more strategic in deploying studentships to leverage further funding. How can we make sure those decisions at the very highest level are fair and transparent about which of those bids go forward and which perhaps are chosen not to go forward?
Are you thinking about at the university level or at the...
Yeah, the big platform level grants for the university have to make big decisions about which bids go forward.
So, I don't know if this is going to answer your question, but I'll give you the answer and you can come back to me if it doesn't. So what we've been doing through the last year, or what Dave Petley's doing over the last year, because this is really university level rather than PDR, is making sure that each time we've had an opportunity for different money, that we've had an open competition, and that all the faculties have been involved in that. So the group that tends to do a lot of the reviewing of those very high level, university level strategic schemes tends to be the research strategy group. And that has the FDRIs of all the faculties on. And we expect the FDRIs, the faculties, to go back through their faculty to get input from the heads of departments, if that's appropriate. So it really is trying to have an open system, but of course we can't have everything. There's also a suggestion that as we move forward with big industrial strategy type funds, that maybe what we need to do is set up some sort of peer review college, and that would go more widely around. But we're still thinking through the best way of doing that. But we're trying to get input across all the faculties when we do this. It's usually through FDRIs. Is that?
No, that's good, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Lorraine. Right. So we've got a busy year ahead of us, and if you'd like to get involved, just get in touch. So I'm now going to hand over to Steve Renshaw, who's going to tell us